Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF Hayomi, Bava Kamma Tes Vav. Perhaps let's go back to the beginning of this section here on Yudalad Amud Beis. So it's going to be 5 lines off the bottom. Al Pi 8, Mishnah stipulates that the only way to collect on your damages is by way of Eidim. Now, if it's just simply telling us that we need Eidim to testify that in fact there was a damage that occurred, then it's Pashut. That's a pretty obvious, simple, well-known fact. No need to discuss that in our Mishnah. So apparently there's an additional twist. There's a Chiddush here in the Mishnah, which is Prat lemoide b'knas. So we know that if a person admits he's moide, that he has to pay a fine, he's patur. A fine can only be imposed by way of the edim, the bezdin. But if a person himself admits to guilt with respect to fine payment, he is patur. But here comes an additional aspect to this halacha. Prat lemoide b'knas v'achar kach bo edim. So imagine a person is moide. Look, I'm guilty. I have to pay a fine, and then edim come along and provide us with the same facts, with the same story. So now you don't need his admission. What happens now? So the Mishnah, by telling us Al Pi Eidim, is indicating to us that the only way you're going to pay is if it's only the Eidim that are coming and informing us. But Prat, as opposed to L'moide b'knas, if he first admits to guilt, V'achar kach bo Eidim, show patur, because once he admits to a knas, he gets like an exemption. He's patur. So even if the Eidim come and inform us of the same, and at this point we can discount his admission, he's been exempted. Now hanichal amanda omar, that's good if you hold that in fact this is true. Moide b'knas v'achar kach bo Eidim, that you're patur. Elul amanda omar moide b'knas. You are really chayav, because we can just disregard your admission. We have the Eidim. So now, Michael, remember, you can't learn that as the explanation for our Mishnah. So when the Mishnah says Al Pi Eidim, it's a simple halacha, plain halacha. You can only obligate tashlumei nezek through Eidim. Well, then it's obvious. So what's the point of the Mishnah? If you can't prove your case, of course you can't expect payment. Seifo itzrichala, you're right. The point is not so much for this line, but rather for the next part of the Mishnah. In order to obligate a person to compensate for damages, you need Eidim who are qualified and certified Eidim. B'nei chayrin, free men as opposed to slaves. Ubnei vris, part of the covenant, part of the nation, Yisraelim. Nothing more explains. B'nei chayrin is lemute as opposed to avadim. B'nei bris is opposed to lemute avid gechav. Now, why would we think? We know that Eidim have to be kosher Eidim. Why would you think that when it comes to this halacha, we don't need, proper Eidim? So the Rambam in Pirush HaMishnah, listen to this. He says, typically these types of incidents, goring and shein, v'regel, all these interanimal interactions, typically occur out in the farms, in the barns, where you have ordinary uncertified people typically running the course of events. The farmers, the animal attendants, who are not necessarily Eidim Ksherim. So the Chiddush is, I would think that perhaps in this case we're sort of going to lower the bar and accept even an Eved or a no. Chiddush is no. This is an Eidos like any other, which requires Eidim Ksherim. Now, why does the Mishnah have to stipulate both things? What's Richa? Why can't we just learn one from the other? You can't use the Eved, and we know that, the Goy as well, or the Goy, and not the, why do we have to stipulate both? There's a Chiddush in each one. The Yashmina and Eved, if we only discuss how the Eved is disqualified from testifying, Mishum de'en lo yachas, and Eved doesn't have, the familial, labeling. He's regarded like part of your property, right? There's no yichus. So perhaps, he's really disqualified from saying edus. Rashi brings the Gemara Yevamos, im achamar, amadam in the chamar is like a chamar. Aval nochar the ishli yachas. When it comes to a guy, there is yichas. There's that sort of family tree identity. Rashi brings the Gemara Yevamos again, which brings a pasuk, Hadri Moin, ben Tadri Moin, ben Chazal. He, the son of him, the son of him. So we see there's a concept of yachas. So perhaps he stands higher in a way than an Eved. So perhaps he's not disqualified. On the flip side, if we only discuss the Nachri's disqualification, I would say, yeah, Mishum Delay Shaykh mitzvahs, because he's not connected to any mitzvahs that we are. Aval Eved the Shaykh mitzvahs, but an Eved who has all the mitzvahs of Yisrael, at least like an Isha, right? So perhaps he's not disqualified. You can say Edus for Tashlumei Nezek Tzricha. That's why the Mishnah needs to specify both. In order to be Mechayev Tashlumei Nezek, you need proper Edim, B'nei Chayrin, and B'nei Bris. And the Mishnah continues. V'anoshim b'chlal ha'nezek. Women are included in this whole, parsha of Nizakin. So if they're responsible for damages, they have to pay. If one damages the property of an Isha, you have to pay her as well. Minan Amili, where do we find this in a pasuk? Omar v'damara v'chein tonat v'Rebbi Shmuel Makro. We have a pasuk by Shvos. Ha-pikadin, a person denies and swears that he does not owe money, and he turns out to be a liar. He admits he has to bring a carbon, a kapara. And the pasuk mentions both. Amar kro ish o isha ki yasum kol chatei adam. We learn from here, Hishva HaKosav Isha Le'isha. Torah here equates women to men, L'chol Onshin Shabbat regarding all punishments and kaparis. That's one source. So we know that the Isha is going to bring a carbon for kapara just like a man would do. Dvei Reb Lezer Tana, according to Reb Lezer, we have a different source from the first pasuk in Parshas Mishpatim. Ve'ela Mishpatim Asher Tasam Lifneim. These are the rules, these are the dinim. The laws presented lifneihem, plural, to them. Who's them? Hishva HaKosav, Isha Le'ish. L'chol dinin shebetorah, the dinim in the Torah, including Bava Kamma, which involves the laws of damages, apply to men and women equally. Third pasuk. Dvei Chizkiah, Rabbi Yehuda Tana, Amakra, Behemis Isha Isha. Here an ox gored a man and killed him. So you have to compensate, right? Do kaifer, monetary compensation to the family. And the pasuk specifies it applies whether it happened to a man or a woman. Behemis Isha Isha. So we have that equation, Hishva HaKosav, Isha Le'ish, L'chol Misah, Isha B'Torah, in cases of death. Now, why do we need all three psukim highlighting the equation? The Hishva HaKosav, Isha Le'ish. We need it by the kapara, we need it by the dinim, and by post-death monetary compensation. Utzricha, they're all needed. Each one carries a chiddush. Why? The ashminan kamais. Had we only discussed the first case, where the Torah obligates a woman to bring a carbon for kapara, I would say, yeah, hasam with the chas rachman Allah. Over there, the Torah has rachmanas on her, has mercy, gives her, enables her to do teshuvah. Ki heichi to have a kapara, right? Aval dinim, when it comes to laws of monetary laws and damage laws. Ish de bar masa umatanin. Perhaps that only applies to a man who's accustomed to doing business and commerce. He's well proficient in these things. He has to live by the rules. But Ishalai, a woman who's not so into these things, perhaps she's exempt. That's why the Torah has to bring the halacha of dinim to Isha as well. How we only discuss that case, I would say you know why women are included in dinim? Because otherwise nobody's going to want to do business with her. So in order to enable her to have parnasa, to support herself, she has to live by the rules. Aval kapara, when it comes to bringing a carbon for kapara, perhaps that's different. Ish de bar mitzvah. Only a man who has the full gamut of mitzvahs, he has to bring kapara. Isha de labar mes mitzvahs, loy, maybe not. V'yash minan netarti. Had we only discussed these two cases, the kapara and the dinim, I would say hacham misham kapara. There it's because of the kapara, which helps her. So here are the laws, the monetary laws, is in order to help her with parnasa. Okay, so these make sense. Aval inin katala, but third case, where the animal killed a person, which triggers the chiyuv of kaifer, monetary compensation to the family. I would say maybe that's only applicable to a man. Ish de bar mitzvah. Mishalem kaifer. Only upon killing a man who's fully obligated in all the mitzvahs is kaifer payment applicable. Ishaloi, but not by a woman. That's why we need that pasuk as well. And on the flip side, the ashmin and kaifer. We only discussed the kaifer payment because ultimately, a person was killed, so we don't differentiate between man and woman. But in the first two examples, like kapara and dinim, the leki with the neshama, there's no loss of life. So perhaps there, we don't include the women. Tzricha pasuk for all three cases. And the Mishnah concludes, hanizik v'hamazak b'tashlumin, which sounds almost like the nizik has to contribute to the payment of the hezek, which basically means he's going to lose some of his potential compensation. Why is that? How is that? We're going to see in a minute. First, let's go into this world-famous machlekes. Itma, we have learned. Palga niska. So we know that an innocent shar, a tam, before he was habitualized, before the owner was given notice, he's called a shar tam, and if he strikes down an animal in the street, you only pay 50%. Palga niska. How do we classify that? Rav Papa Amar Mamoina. It's actual payment for actual damages. It's rightfully owed. It's not a penalty. You damaged, you killed, gotta pay. Rav Huna Bar Yeshua Amar no, knasa. It's a fine, it's a penalty. Something which, according to the strict letter of the law, you wouldn't have to pay. It's just a fine which is imposed on you. And what would be the difference? Moed b'knas. If the owner of the animal admits guilt in this respect, well, if it's mamain, you have to pay. If it's knas, you're potter, right? So why? What's the machlekes about? Rav Papa Amar Mamoina. This payment is rightfully due. You know why? Because he holds stam shvorim lav becheskas shimur kaimi. You have to expect an animal to go wild. The default, state of a shor is not becheskas shimur, presumed to be tame and guarded. Unless you guard it, you don't know what it's going to do. So, and really, you sure went out and hurt something and damaged an animal, you really should pay full damages, because you should have known better than letting your shur go free. But the Torah gives you a discount. The Torah has rachmanas on him. Because the animal wasn't yet habitualized, he wasn't yet put on notice, so perhaps he was sort of, under the impression that his animal is well behaved and he didn't expect this to happen, so we sort of give him a bit of a discount. But the 50% that he does pay is mamay, rightfully owed to the victim. But Rav Huna Bar Yeshua Amar no, knasa. It's a penalty. It's a fine. It's not really rightfully owned, because he holds the other way around. Stam shvarim. Your average animal is becheskas shimur kaimi. It's presumed to be tamed. No need to look over it and watch it. And realistically, he shouldn't be paying anything the first couple of times until he was put on notice, and he anticipated this. So otherwise, he would be potter. For Achmano, the concept of the Torah says, look, we want to be extra strict here. We don't want to apply a knas so that going forward, he looks after his shur and everybody else. Takes a lesson from this fellow. No, monkey, you got to really look after your animal. And Rashi in Ksuba says, shmira al shmira. Don't just get by with minimal shmira. Add more and more layers of shmira. Tanat. So let's take this machlekes back to our Mishnah, which concludes with the following phrase: Hanizak v'hamazak b'tashlumin. Not only does the mazik pay, but the nizak sort of also contributes to the payment. What does that mean? So if you go with the opinion that 50% is mamain, so in reality he deserves 100%, but the Torah gave him a discount. So that makes sense. So now the lashon of the Mishnah works very well. The nizak is really part of this payment because he's losing. He's sort of contributing to the payment. He's going down from 100% to 50%. However, if you hold that the entire payment here is just based on the knas factor, but it's not really rightfully deserved, so to speak, by the recipient, so be happy with what you get. You're not contributing, you're not losing anything. Look, if he's even getting something which he doesn't deserve, you consider him a contributor? So what does the Mishnah mean? Like Tzricha says the Gemara, you're right. The Mishnah is speaking regarding that depreciation of value between the actual misa of the animal until the payment was worked out in Bezdin. El Chas Nevela, which we had a couple of days ago, where the Chas Nevela indicates the loss of value on the carcass from the time of the misa until the time that payment was arranged. And basically, that loss is on the nizik. So let's say the actual damage was $100. The mazik has to pay $50, and the nevela, was worth X amount at that time, 25, let's say. So it counts towards the payment. It's discounted from the bill, and even though there was a pchas nevela that occurred later on, the animal went down in value, spoilage, whatever, the nizik has to accept that as though it was worth 25. So we do have some sort of contribution on the side of the nizik. He's giving up some of money that's owed to him. He's not even getting 50%. He's getting less than 50% because of the pchas nevela. Well, that's been discussed previously. Pchas nevela. We don't need to talk about that again. Hatani l'reisha. We had that back in the on DAF Yud, right? Where the Mishnah used the term tashlumei nezek instead of just I'm paying the net. What's tashlumei nezek? Loshna hashloma. I have to just pay the balance. So I deduct the actual value of the carcass, and the mazik only pays the rest. That's where we learn this concept that the balim, the owner of the dead animal, has to look after his carcass. Any depreciation is on him. So why the repetition? Why mention this halacha twice? Answers the Gemara, you write chada batam, chada b'muad. One is to apply the halacha to a shar tam who killed, and one to a muad. And each one has a chiddush. L'tzricha. Di ashminon tam, if only tam. I say, here the perpetrator is not so guilty because he wasn't yet put on notice, it was unexpected, it was a surprise. So we sort of give him that discount. The pchas nevela is on the nizik. Aval muad, but in the case where this animal was known to be a killer, so perhaps in this case, where the animal is known to be an aggressive, went and damaged and harmed, so the owner should have really guarded his animal. So perhaps he doesn't get this bonus of sparing him the pchas nevela loss. And had we discussed muad as well, look, after all, he's paying 100%, so you give him a little discount. Aval tam, who's only paying 50%, so, like they say in the stores, you can't combine offers, right? So perhaps you can't just give him another discount as well. No, the chiddush is both in tam and muad, pchas nevela is on the nizik. Bottom line is, we have a machlokes, palganiska mamoina, palganiska kasa, and here come a couple of rights, one way or the other. Toshma, we have a price. Ma bin tam and lemuad. Give me some examples of differences between tam and muad. Shatam mishal mechatzi nezek. First of all, tam only pays 50% of the damages, and number two, migufoy. It's capped at a maximum to the value of the actual perpetrator. So you can't obligate the owner of that perpetrator to pay more than the value of his ox. As opposed to a muad, he's fully responsible, no strings attached. Muad mishal nezek shalom, right? Min aliyah, from his own pocket. Now, we only have these distinctions between tam and muad. There's another one on the table, vim isa, if it's correct, that palganiska is knasa. One big difference right there. Listening nami, the Brisa should have added this to the list as well. Tam in mishalma piatzmai. The 50% tam payment is a knas, which you don't pay by your own admission. But a muad who's paying rightfully mishalma piatzmai, you pay by your own admission as well. So why don't we mention that distinction if in fact tam is knas? Well, Tana Bashir, Tana gives us a list, but leave something out. You can't, derive anything from there. My share, thy share. What else they leave out, which would indicate that it's an incomplete list, which would make sense if you're saying that he left this out as well. Shir chatzi kofer. The Brisa left out chatzi kofer, which basically means that when a shir muad kills a person, there's full monetary compensation to the family, right? But when a shir tam kills, there's no payment at all. There's no chatzi kofer. So that's a distinction between tam and muad, which is not mentioned in the Brisa. There's your missing distinction. There's your omission. Well, no, says the Gemara, if only for that, lav shiurahu. That's not called an omission because it's incorrect. Hamani, because guess what? This brisa is following the shita of Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, the Amar tam mishalem chatzi kofer. He holds that just as the muad pays 100% kofer to the relatives of the victim, likewise a tam pays 50%. So, yeah, it's pretty much included in the other halacha of the Brisa, that muad is 100% liable and tam is 50% liable. There's no omission, nothing missing in the list, and therefore we have no teretz. Toshma, here comes another Raya that palganiska of a tam is considered actual payment mamoina and not kanas tashma. So if a Mishnah Ksubas, a fellow gets up one day and says, look, Rabbi Say, Haim is Shayrius Pliny. He's standing in Bezdin. I admit that my animal killed Shimon. Oy Shayrius Pliny, or Shimon's ox. Hareza Mishalam Piatzmai. So he's now liable to pay. He has to pay the kaifer in the first case, which is monetary compensation to the family, or in the case of the Shayr of Pliny, he has to pay the nezik. Which sounds like it applies in all situations. Whether his shayr was a shayr tam, an innocent shayr, or a muad. My lav betam. So even by a tam, his animal, he has to pay for the hezek, for the damages perpetuated by his animal, even though it's chatzi nezik. Apparently chatzi nezik is mammon, which allows it to be applied even by way of personal admission. And Rashi, by the way, points out that apparently this brisa, which says that a tam is chayev upon killing a person, basically meaning you have to pay chatzi kofer, that's Rabbi Yehuda. Okay? So in any case, we seem to have a raya that the tam payment is mammon, it's not knas. No. B'muad, we're speaking about a muad, where certainly payment is considered mammon. And therefore, it can happen by way of personal admission. Okay, so aval tam. So let's say it would be a tam. What would happen? Do you mean to say you can't pay al piatzma because it's a knasi? If that's the case, take a look at the next part of the brayse. At the Mishnah. Adatani seif. Mishnah continues. Here we have cases where you're not going to pay based on personal admission of guilt. Hey, Miss Sharias Avdishal Pliny. My share killed my friend's Evet Kanani, which Rashi says triggers a knas payment, 30 sela, which is not mammon, because it's not reflective of the Evet's actual, market value. It's called a knas. So in that case, there's no payment. So we're looking for a case where Maida Haida admission does not trigger payment. Why do you have to go switch to a different track of killing an Evet? Just stick to our case as well and find a distinction within our shar that killed another shar. Well, it depends. If he's a tam, then you don't pay by personal admission. If he's a muad, you do, right? Stick to the same, case. Live like we're listening to the day. Let us find a distinction within our case. A shar killing another shar. When do we say that you pay b'muad? Muad is actual payment. It's mammon. Aval b'tam, if your shar was an innocent shar, in which case payment would potentially only be a knas. Eina mishal piatz, but you don't pay by way of personal admission. If it's true that it's a knas. Well, kula b'muad kamayri. Right, the Mishnah just wants to stick to muad. You're right. If it would be a tam, it would be a knas. But we just don't want to go there. And therefore we prefer cases of muad. And within muad itself we find that in some cases you don't pay al piatzmai. That's by the case of knas, by killing an evet. Tashma is another raya. That palganiska is mamayna. Zakal. Here's a all-encompassing rule. When the amount that you pay exceeds the actual damage, that indicates that it's a knas, and you don't pay by way of personal admission, but only because it exceeds the actual value of damage. My love, let's make a diuk, but if it's less than the actual damage, like chatzi nezek of a tam, mishalim, you do pay by hayda. That's a raya that it's not a knas. No. When the Mishnah Brisa says the payment exceeds, it's a knas. It means like this: hakama shehizik mishalim. But if it's exactly reflective of the hezek value, that's called mammon. That you pay al piatzmai. But if it's anything more or less, then it's a knas. Aval pachas. But if it would be less than the actual damages, like the chatzi nezek of a shar tam, what would happen? In this case as well, you would not pay by hayda because it's a knas yachi. If that's so, adatani. So in the Brisa continues, that klal. This is the rule, right? If you pay more than the actual damage, you don't do it on your own. Why go and present it in this manner? Just say simply, listen, you say like this. If you pay any other number, anything other than the actual hezek, whether it's more, whether it's the mashma baka, it's the mashma yoysa, whether it's less, whether it's more, it's considered a knas. Say like that, which encompasses everything. Exact is mammon, anything more or less is a knas. If in fact it's true that less is a knas. So there's a strong kasha to yufta, and that's a kasha, irrefutable kasha. It's clear from here that when you pay less, like palganiska, it's called a mammon. It's not knas. But the Gemara concludes, so you should know the halacha is palganiska is a knasa. What do you mean? To yufta, first you refute it, and then you paskin like it. So I say, well, yeah, it. Time mahayavat yufta. What was the refutation? Let's go back. Because the Brisa failed to present it in this way. It didn't say, well, if you pay exactly what you were mazik, it's mammon, everything else is knas. It didn't say it like that, so that proved our point. No. I'll tell you why the Brisa chose to steer away from that phrase. Because it's not a clear-cut fact. If you would say it this way, that exact payment is mammon, anything less is not, it wouldn't be correct. Sometimes it would, but sometimes not. We have one exception to the rule. Tzroiris, as we had the other day, is the animal walking through a street, and by way of his walking, he sort of flicked some pebbles, which skipped over and, broke something. So although it's an expression of regel, but the halacha Meshamisina says it's an exception. It's sort of like a secondary mazik. It's a by the way mazik. It's a indirect mazik. You only pay 50%, but really it's not a knas. The hilchas mirila, we know from the halacha Meshamisina, the mamainu, it's really mammon. It's not knas. So basically, this is an exception to the rule. So we couldn't establish that as a rule. Exact payment is mammon. Everything else is knas because we have one exception. The chatzi nezek of tzveris is mammon. And that explains Mishamach like Tony. That's why the Brisa did not present it that way. But really, it didn't mean in any way to indicate that the chatzi nezek of a yishar tam is considered knas. It is considered mammon. It is a knas. It is a knas. V'hash the amras palganiska knas. Once we have that as an established fact, that the keren of a shar tam, which basically incorporates any sort of aggressive behavior, which are considered derivatives and variations of the keren. If it happens with a shar tam, it's 50% payment and it's a knas. V'hash the amras palganiska knas. Once we have that as an established halacha, here come some examples. Hai kalbo the achal imri. Of a dog ate up some sheep, v'shunro the achal tarnagoyla, or a cat attacked a chicken. That's something unusual. Mishunahu. It's an expression of keren. It's aggressive behavior. And if it's the first or second time around, it's a knas. V'lay magbina b'bubble. We can't collect on this in bubble because Rashi explains knas can only be dealt with through smuchim, through certified dayanim. In bubble we don't have that. So in bubble we can't tend to this type of situation. That only applies to large size sheep or large size chickens, which are not typically attacked by these dogs and cats. So that's called keren. It's an aggressive, unusual behavior. But if they're small in size, that's just common practice. When he's hungry, so that's called shein. Right? It's just an expression of his desire to eat. That's not called keren. So that payment is really mammon, and that could be addressed even in bubble. Now, even when we speak about a knas, which cannot be addressed in bubble, via tafas, but if the victim grabbed hold of an item belonging to the perpetrator, we don't take it away from him, because once he has it, he has the right to hold on to it. And likewise, via Omar, let's say he comes to the business and says, look, I know that locally we can't deal with this. Let's go to Eretz Yisrael. Kavelu Zimna, set a date. The Zimna Nar de Yisrael. I want to go to Eretz Yisrael. Force my litigant to come with me to the bezdin there to deal with it. Kavin Lei, we set the date. V'la Yazal. And if the litigant is uninterested in going, he refuses to cooperate. We put him a cher. Either way, we put him a cher until he gets rid of this violent animal. Adam Esalik Ezek. Midrab Nasan, the son of Nasan. Aimer Menayin, how do we know Shlei Gadlo them Kelav Rabbi Zechbesai? While Yamid Sulam Ra'ub Zechbesai, a person should not raise a dangerous dog in his home or a shaky ladder which pose potential harm. Tamalaymar Lo Yisasam Dam Veisecha. Don't put damim, potential death or injury, into your home. Protect your home from all these types of things. Okay, so conclusion. We had the halacha that the nezek is only paid by way of proper edim. Women are included in all these halachas of nizakin. Chas nevela, the loss of the appreciation of the nevela is on the nizak. What about the chas nezek paid by yatam? Machlekes, whether it's mamin or knas, when we pass that it's knas, and therefore in Bavel it cannot be tended to, rather they must take it there to Yisrael. Says the Mishnah. Chamisha tamin v'chamisha mu'adin. So now the Mishnah will give us a list, 5 situations where the hezek was sort of unexpected, unanticipated. It's a relatively we're dealing with a relatively innocent situation, in which case it only triggers a 50% liability, and 5 which are mu'adin. You should have expected it. It was anticipated. You're fully guilty, 100%. So 5 of each category. We start with tam. Habehema, your typical animal, is Eina Moedes, is not really expected to do the following: to act aggressively, Lo ligach, to gore, Lo ligach, nor to body shove, Lo lishoich, to bite, Lo lirvite, to crouch on things, Lo livite, to kick. So these are 5 expressions of Isher Tam. So the first couple of times they're not expected until the owners put on notice and it becomes habitualized. So these are the 5 Tam. Now we shift over to the 5 Mu'adin, in which case the owner is deemed fully responsible. Hashem, an animal, is accustomed to eating all the time, and you should have expected it. Mu'edes lech, l'saroila. He's meant to eat. He's bound. He's expected to eat something which is, which is edible. Haregel mu'edes lishbar b'derech hilucha. Likewise, when it comes to regel, damaging by way of just walking, he's meant to walk, and he's liable to damage things as he's walking. Number 3, v'shar hamuad. Even with respect to the aforementioned, unusual expressions of aggression like the negicha and the negifa, but it happens several times. The owner was put on notice. It's habitualized. That's a shar hamuad. Muad, by the way, is from lashon edim, which is typically the way you put somebody on notice. You inform him by way of edim, a formal, notice. So that's how it gets its lashon muad. But in any case, the point is it's habitualized, it's internalized, it's expected to happen, and therefore anything that happens going forward, you are fully responsible for. Oh, let's say the animal engaged in something unusual, Karen, but it happened where? In the victim's backyard. You have no business being there, so you're fully responsible. For Adam, if a person is mazik, he's fully responsible. Whether it's his first, second, or 100th time, he's fully responsible. So we have 5 mu'adim. The Mishnah concludes: Hazev, a wolf, Fari, a lion, Vadoiv, a bear, Vanomer, leopard, a bardless, some other animal, Vanochash, a snake, Haril mu'adim. All these fellows are fully liable. They're aggressive animals. You should have known better. Rabbi Lezer Omer Bizman Shehin Bnei Tarbus. One exception: if they're domesticated and trained, Eina mu'adim. You didn't have to expect them to go wild. But when it comes to Hanachash, I agree. There's no way to domesticate him. He's the epitome of evil. He's a mu'ad lo'ilam. Says the Gemara. So the Mishnah made reference to an animal eating. We know that you're only chayav for shein if it took place in the chatz of the nizak. Pasuk says, or bi'er b'stei achar, in his place. Uktani. And then the Mishnah at the beginning, in discussing unusual expression of aggression, said, Uktani behema ein moedes l'shalem kulei ala chatzanilik m'shalemes, that a shar tam is only going to pay 50%. Now the Mishnah is speaking where we've established that the Mishnah is speaking in chatzar nizik. So even in the chatzar nizik, you only pay 50% for keren. Oh, mani rabbanani. This is Rabbanan speaking. The Amri, he was saying, Mishuna Karen, even the unusual Karen expressions, the Chatzar Nizak, if it happened in the Chatzar Nizak, even there, Mirchatzi Nezak, because B'Shalom only pay 50%. Like any other Karen in Rosh Hashanah, there's no difference where it happened. Amos Seifa. But let's move on to the next part of the Mishnah, which says, Shar HaMuad. V'Shar HaMazik B'Rosh Hashanah V'Adam. So Shar HaMazik, in Rosh Hashanah, whether he ate, whether he trampled, whether he gored, even though it's Keren, if it's in Rosh Hashanah, it gets bumped up to 100%. Asan the Rabbi Tarfon, that's Rabbi Tarfon speaking. The Amar Mishun Keren Chatzar Nizak, how much do you pay in the Chatzar Nizak? Nezak Shalom with the Shalom. So Reisha Rabban, the first part of the Mishnah is the Rabbanon, that a Keren in Rosh Hashanah is only 50%. V'Seifa, the next part is Rabbi Tarfon, that's 100%. The Mishnah shifted gears in the middle. Yeah, incorrect. The Amar the Shmuel turned to Rabbi Yehuda, Shimon, a sharp one. Shvoik Mas Nissen. Stop trying to reconcile the entire Mishnah with one opinion. V'Sab Asroi, and follow my track. Yep, Reisha Rabbanon, V'Seifa Rabbi Tarfon. Evidently the Mishnah switched tracks. The first part is the Rabbanon, the next comes Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Lezer Rishmei the Rav Amar, no, you don't have to say that. Kula Rabbi Tarfon. The entire Mishnah reflects Shittas Rabbi Tarfon. And therefore the Mishnah says, a shirt that's mazik, b'rishus hanizik, whether he did shein, or regel, or even keren, it's nezek shalom. The question is the Reisha. The Reisha which says that if the animal ate, you're chayiv for his shein, which we thought was speaking in the chatzar hanizik, which was inconsistent with the first part, which says that if Keren occurred in the same place, it's only 50% payment, which sort of contradicted the next part of the Mishnah. Listen to this. Kula Rabbi Tarfon, everything is Rabbi Tarfon. And Keren B'Shus HaNizak, Nezek Shalom. Reisha, but the first part of the Mishnah is speaking like this. We already had some variation of this halacha a couple of days ago. B'Chatzar HaMiyuchedes Leperes Le'echad Mehem. So basically, they both own, the Mazik, the Nizak, Reuven and Shimon both own this property. However, only Shimon, the victim, has a right to bring his pears, to store his fruit in there. And both Reuven and Shimon have access to this place regarding bringing their animals. So now, it's sort of a split use area. The Legabi Shein. When it comes to the Shein expression, so Reuven's animal chewed up Shimon's produce, Havi l'chatzar nizek. That's called chatzar nizek, because when it comes to storing fruit, it's exclusively for him. It's his place with respect to pears. So therefore, everybody agrees that you pay 100% for that. Oh, but when it comes to an aggressive expression of Keren, here, since both Reuven and Shimon had full rights to bring their animals into this place, it's both our territory. It's not yours, it's not mine. It's like just a Rabbim with respect to Keren. Interesting. So we sort of split the area. With respect to Shein, since only he had a right to bring his fruit, it's considered like Rosh Hashanah. I went into his place. I ate his fruit. Because the fruit storage rights, so to speak, is exclusive to him. So with respect to Shein, it's like a Chatzar Nizik. And therefore I'm chayiv. But with respect to any sort of other expression like Keren, all these aggressive expressions, for which we both have a right, sort of to be here. We both have a right to bring our animals in here. So with respect to that behavior, it's like Rosh Hashanah. And what happens in Rosh Hashanah? Even Rabbi Tarfon agrees. A Keren Tam pays 50%. Okay, so in summary, we learned about the Edim, to be Mechayiv the Nezek, Nashim are included, all these halachis. Chatzi Nezek of a Tam can be either Mammon or Knas, depending on the Shittes. We learned about examples of the Tamin, examples of Mu'adin. All the best to you. Atzlacha Rabbim B'sureis Toivos.